You're listening to the Healing Wisdom Podcast. I'm Pandora Peoples, and today we're speaking with actor David Dean Bottrell about his one-man show Teenage Wasteland, happening Saturday, August 2nd at Wellfleet Preservation Hall. We're also speaking with actor, director, filmmaker Paul Schuyler, who is teaching a class at Pres Hall as part of the Youth Filmmaking Workshop series happening August 5th through the 8th. His class, August 5th at 1:30, is called A Crash Course in Creating a Story. You've probably seen my next guest, David Dean Bottrell, on TV, on Frasier, Dharma and Greg, Mad About You, Caroline in the City, Days of Our Lives, Criminal Minds, Modern Family, Law and Order, Boston Legal, and more recently on The Blacklist and Rectify. And he's coming to Wellfleet Preservation Hall with his solo show, Teenage Wasteland, about his early adolescence. Welcome. Thank you for being with us, David. Tell us about how you got to writing Teenage Wasteland in the first place.
You know, I'm always looking for a new theme to write because this is my fourth show, and I'm always looking for something universal. And about 2 years ago, I thought, adolescence is universal. Everybody went through that. And so I started scratching some notes down about that. And then it kind of got put on the back burner. And then in January, or I guess December of last year, I got contacted about being in this festival. And they said, "Hey, you want to be in it?" I was saying, "Yeah, sure." And they said, "Can you write a new show?" Like, okay. So I just had to sit down and just do it. And I wrote the whole thing in about 3 weeks' time. And I was amazed. It just kind of spilled out of me. All these things that I kind of forgotten about just came tumbling out. And I went up there the first night. It was very quick. I had to write it. I didn't even know how long it was when I got up on the stage. And wow, everybody responded so strongly to it. And everybody was laughing, and they were getting a little teary-eyed every once in a while. And I thought, this is really something. Everybody has roots. They go all the way back to adolescence. And so it's been a real pleasure to do it. I mean, everybody seems to love it, and I'm touring it around, and wherever I go, they seem to have a great time. So it's really been fun.
You've written about your experiences in Hollywood. You've written now this show about adolescence. Are there any parallels? Certainly both are difficult.
Yeah. I think it's a subject that never gets old. I'll tell you that. Mostly because, when I'd really thought about those years in a long time until I started writing the show. And then I was reminded of how weird it is because all of these things are changing for you at that age. And you're physically changing, and the whole sort of social structure of the school is changing, and nobody's a child anymore, but you're not an adult yet. And you have all these questions, but you don't know who to talk to about them because it's so risky and so embarrassing. What if you say the wrong thing? Or what if you tell your best friend the secret and they blab it all over the school and then you're the laughing stock? It's so kind of weird because you have these two lives, and also your life at school becomes different than your life at home. You actually start to have your own sort of private world, and it's all so new, and it's so easy to make a mistake. It's so easy to blunder because this is your first time at bat, and it makes for some very good storytelling. I'll say that.
So you have lots of experience as a writer, as a stage actor, as a TV actor. And, a lot of people know you from TV because you've been, not only were you in recurring roles, including a soap opera,
Yep.
and Boston Legal, but you also have had these really memorable parts.
What was interesting, when I started to work in television as an actor, suddenly I would go to parties and people felt like they'd met me. That still happens to this day. I'll go to some place where I don't really know anybody, and they'll say, I feel like I know you. I know you from somewhere. Where do I know you from? And it always sounds so pretentious to say, "Oh, I was on TV." But that's usually what it comes down to, is they've seen me on one of the shows. I've been really blessed in that most of the shows that I've been on were really big shows. They were really big, popular, long-running, high-rated shows. And I've been very blessed with having great parts. So I'm a lucky man in that way. But that's usually what it comes down to, is they know me from somewhere. They just can't quite pin me.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, you've been in Caroline in the City, Mad About You, Dharma and Greg, Days of Our Lives, Likely Betty, Criminal Minds. More recently, The Blacklist, Rectify, Law and Order, Modern Family, Mad Men, etc., etc. So it is an interesting thing because pretty much if people watch TV at all, if they've watched TV at all in the last 30 years,
Yeah.
they have seen you. Has that ever carried over to be more like, "I'm sure I know you"? Like, has anyone confused you for the character, especially on your recurring roles?
Yeah. There's a weird thing that happens on Boston Legal because there was another guy on Boston Legal who had a very funny, kind of murder related role. His name is Leslie Jordan. He passed away a few years ago, but our storylines were somewhat similar. So sometimes people confuse his storyline with mine. Yeah, I think he was killed with a frying pan or something on the show. And so you're the guy who was killed with a frying pan. I don't even bother to correct people. It doesn't matter. Like, yeah, that was me. It doesn't matter. It's all good. And I am so blessed because I've been able to do like shows that were very, very funny, like Modern Family and Frasier and all of that. And I've also been on some things like Rectify, which were really, really not funny, really beautifully written, amazing shows. That show won a Peabody Award. So I've been so blessed that I get to do this kind of wide range. And what I'm really happy about is that I also do have time and space in my life to do like live performing, as I'm going to be doing very shortly here in Wellfleet. But I have missed that sometimes because it's this very different kind of job, acting in front of a camera as opposed to being in front of an audience. So I'm really happy that I'm getting a chance to do this because I really love hearing people laugh. It's just an amazing feeling.
In addition to that live feedback from a large group of people, what are some of the differences for you in terms of acting on camera versus acting on a stage?
Well, it's interesting because what I'm doing right now with this storytelling shows that I do is, in the past, what I really loved about acting was I could kind of hide behind this character. I could kind of be somebody else, and anything I was saying was, written by some other person. And in this case, with these shows, I'm not trying to be somebody else. In fact, it's quite the opposite. I'm trying to be as transparent as I can be and as honest as I can be. And so it's a very different experience. And it took me a while to get used to it because I used to find it absolutely terrifying. I would be standing backstage, I'd just be shaking in my boots before I went on. And once I was out there, I was okay. But it's taken a little while to get used to that because it's very different. It's not stand-up comedy, it's storytelling. It's a different kind of beast. And what I learned about it was what's the most rewarding thing, I think, is to tell the truth and to tell a little more truth than I'm actually comfortable telling. But if I go that extra mile, I can feel the change in the audience. They really start listening. They really trust me. They really laugh a lot louder and harder and more deeply. It's really something. So it is it's not quite like being in a play, which is a whole other beast, but it's unique. It's a unique experience. And I find it very rewarding. And I'm always so amazed how much people laugh and then kind of there are parts of it that are not funny at all. And they go there and then they come back with me when we go to the next thing that's funny. It's really something. It's a very, very human experience, I guess I'd say.
Yeah, yeah, it's interesting. I think people are really positively responding to that authenticity, and I've seen that happening with any kind of solo performance and storytelling. Like people are really just it's like they're just bathing in the realness. Unfortunately, social media, you can kind of get a sense of people's rawness, but there's a self-consciousness sometimes too in creating content. And when that filter is more or less gone, people are just really soaking it in. Really.
I agree. I agree. I
Yeah.
mean, as much as social media has changed us and helped us in a lot of ways, it's also because it's a completely, open rodeo, like anybody can do whatever they want to do. It's also become difficult sometimes to sort the truth from what's an opinion or what's utter fiction. And so I think that when you're actually in a room with somebody as opposed to watching something on a screen, there's a human thing that you can kind of feel. You can just kind of tell if you're being lied to. And so it's this whole thing with like The Moth has become incredibly popular, and shows like the ones that I'm doing, which is a little longer than a Moth show. It's become really popular because I think people really love this sense of community. The thing that I say in the show is when I hear people laugh, I know that means they understand it and they've experienced it. They've been there. And it may be a slightly different version, but at its core level, we're all very human and we have very similar experiences, just with different settings and different characters, but our experience is a lot alike. And that laughter is very healing. It really builds bridges.
Yeah, absolutely. My final question is about you co-writing the off-Broadway play Dearly Departed, which you co-wrote with Jesse Jones, and then you together adapted it for the film version Kingdom Come, which starred Whoopi Goldberg, LL Cool J, Jada Pinkett
Ah,
Smith, produced by Fox Searchlight Pictures. Can you talk about writing that? How did you come to the project, and
oh,
what was your
sure.
takeaway from it?
Jesse and I, I've known Jesse, knew Jesse for many, many years before that. And she and I were both actors in New York at the time. And both of us were going through a bit of a dry spell. And we decided to write something that we could perform in. And we came from very similar families. Her family's from Texas, mine was from Kentucky. And we had this great collection of family stories that we sort of wove together into the play. And then the script of the play became kind of popular, which led me anyway to head west to pursue screenwriting and all that. So, and then an opportunity came up for us to adapt the play. And it was just like a huge, it just came out of nowhere, really, in a way. In the world of Hollywood, it went through a few developmental changes, but it came out as a very successful film. And so, because of that, I continued to write as a screenwriter for a while. But in terms of writing, that Dearly Departed was the first thing I ever really wrote at all. And it was, God, what incredible piece of, beginner's luck, because it really changed my entire life. And I went on to screenwrite for like probably 13 years before I stepped away from that job, which was very high paying, but extremely stressful. And so I'm kind of glad that that chapter kind of receded, and my acting career kind of came back again because of a phone call one day. And so now I get to write mostly things that I really love. And I don't have to work with committees so much anymore, which was a lot of what screenwriting was a lot of committee work.
How did you negotiate that creative part? Because it's when you're in the zone and you created something that you know is really good, like both, in terms of like the formula, in the craft and the creative impulse, and you have people weighing in on it at that level. I feel like writing is unique in terms of the feedback that people get. I think part of it's that everybody can write. Like not everybody thinks that they can act, but I think that everybody thinks they can write.
Right.
What are your thoughts your thoughts on that?
My thoughts are that's pretty accurate what you just said. My biggest experience I found, at least in the movie business, I never worked in TV, but in the movie business, what I discovered was when I would write a script, and that happens many different ways. Like sometimes I'm adapting a novel, or sometimes it's my own idea, or sometimes I'm rewriting somebody else's script, or it's whatever it is. What I found was once the ball starts rolling, everybody thinks it's their movie. Like, I think it's my movie. The director thinks it's his or her movie. The star thinks that it's their movie. The producer thinks that it's their movie. And it's almost like this giant custody battle that you're suddenly involved with because it's everybody's baby. And so everyone gets very territorial, and everyone, is saying, without me, this is going nowhere. And so it becomes there's a lot of diplomacy involved in it. I will say that, and there's no real rule book for how a movie gets made, but it's sort of sometimes I feel like it's just this lucky train wreck that you get somehow you manage to make enough changes that everybody is happy enough that we can move forward, and then God knows what happens on the set, and then you go in the editing room and you piece it together somehow, and it can sometimes be really, really fun, and sometimes it can be really rugged. Was my experience with it, but I will say this about it: it took writing out of the mysterious world of just sort of being inspired all the time, and it made me realize that writers, people who make their money as writers, you learn that you have to write if you're in the mood or not. You know, you have to write whether you're inspired or not. And you have to understand. I was talking to somebody about this the other day. You have to understand if you want to write something, you have to be prepared to write it horribly at first. and then and then once you have a horrible draft of it, you can fix it. But it's almost impossible to write everything and have it be beautiful and flawless and perfect and it all fits together. So I guess I learned a lot about the process. And the other thing I learned, which has really served me well, was to not repeat myself and to be a very vicious editor of my own work so that I just use just what I need. I don't have extra words. I have just enough to get the job done, whatever the job might be. So it was really good for me in that way. It taught me to be a writer, that's for sure.
Yeah, those are all really good points. And it really goes back to the beginning when you said that you started writing this because somebody told you to write it. If you accept the mission, you gotta do it. Sometimes it's nice to have that structure to make you do something and then to make even if no one else is telling you to write, to make yourself do it and be prepared for it to be messy and imperfect. I think a lot of people get too discouraged early on in the process of anything. There'd be a lot more, creative output if people didn't let themselves get discouraged.
Yeah, I will tell you, for anybody who's listening who likes to write or wants to write, I will just tell you that the great, great lesson I learned was to finish.
Mm-hmm.
No matter how rotten it is, finish it. Because once it's finished, then you have something. You actually have a script and you can go back and rewrite that script. And even if you read the rotten draft, there are going to be moments in that rotten draft that are great. Moments here and there. They'll be like, oh, wow, that's really good. Out of which you kind of figure out your script. Nothing inspires brilliance more than a deadline.
Love to hear that.
Absolutely true. And this show, by the way, was written on a deadline, Teenage Wasteland, because I had a deadline, and I didn't I didn't even really think about it. I just started typing and I didn't stop, and did a little revising and all that. And like I said, it's been remarkable. Both the response from audiences and the response from critics has been really. It's just been remarkable. I did a show here in New York on the 16th, I think, and it was packed to the rafters. And the audience response was like off the chart to just this particular set of stories. And I'm really excited that I get to do it more. I'm happy that this is continuing on and I'm taking it to other cities. And it's really lovely.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, David Dean Botrell, for joining us today. I appreciate your wisdom. It's going to be a great show.
I can't wait. I'm really excited. I'm really excited to do it in Wellfleet. So thank you so much.
You can see Teenage Wasteland August 2nd at the Wellfleet Preservation Hall. Tickets are available at wellfleetpreservationhall.org. My next guest is actor-filmmaker Paul Schuyler. He and his wife Jade are the force behind White Shark Media, and he's teaching a crash course in creating a story as part of the Youth Filmmaking Workshop series happening August 5th through the 8th. It's from 10 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. 7 filmmakers and 9 classes will teach students how to edit, score, act, direct, and write their own film. To see the schedule, you can go to wellfleetpreservationhall.org. It's free and open to students 10 through 18. Some of the classes are more geared towards teenagers, and you can find all of that information and a registration link for each class at wellfleetpreservationhall.org. You were teaching a youth filmmaking workshop Tuesday, August 5th at 1:30. And first off, I'd love for you to talk about your background. You started off as a director.
My earliest memory is going to see The Towering Inferno when I think I was 5, and not fully grasping what was happening, but just knowing like I have found my place. And it's just been a systematic ingest as many movies as I can get into my system, make movies, trial and error. I've always been fascinated by actors, obviously, as a director. Anytime you can understand an actor more, the better. So I took an acting class. And this class was, one of the caveats was directors had to put up 2 scenes. They had to walk in the shoes of an actor. And my first two scenes were so embarrassing and so terrible. I don't even remember them. I was so nervous. I could tell by the dead reaction from the audience, like, this did not go well. And I tend to be one of those people, like, if I fail at something, then I've got to really dig in and figure it out. So I did it until I cracked the code. And then it was probably 2 or 3 years of just acting. Like, it was such a relief not to have to worry about, I don't care where the lights are. I don't care what that's, never mind that. And craft services can whatever. Like, I just have one job to do. But then, of course, I found my way back to directing.
It's cool. So as a child, you were a big movie person. What movies like impacted you and made you think about making your own films?
So Towering Inferno was like the first time, because after that whenever I would play with friends, I would direct them. Like, we're going to play whatever war, but like, you're this guy and you're this guy and you're going to be over here and we're going to do this. And so it had already started there, but I think it was when Jaws came out that because there was so much buzz around Steven Spielberg. That was the first time I was aware, like, oh, there's a person who authors the movie. There's somebody that's like kind of overseas. And then it was like, that's my guy. So Jaws probably has the biggest, it's my favorite movie of all time. I maintain it's like Quentin Tarantino, it's the greatest movie ever made. Maybe not the greatest film ever made, but it's the greatest movie ever made. So that has a huge impact.
Yeah. And I was just talking with Dana McCoy, who's also teaching a class about Jaws, because she mentioned it because there was a mechanical error that actually made it so that they depended more on the sound as a character to really represent, the shark itself. Yep. And I think it's a really good case for, it's not always what we see, it's what we don't see.
Right. I was just thinking about this the other day. Jaws shouldn't exist. Like, had the shark work, we would have had like probably a good action movie. But the fact he was so stressed about it and just couldn't get it to work, he made the ocean terrifying. It wasn't the shark, it was what's under and it was all those eye level shots. Like, you're just the whole movie, you're just at the waters. Like, you're in the water. And it's a masterful way to visually tell the story. And that's Spielberg's strength. But Spielberg's kind of an alien. I feel like in film school, going back and watching all his influences, like Kurosawa, for instance, or Frank Capra, you can see that the way he synthesized that inside himself. And now he's everything that came before him. So he's like a cheat sheet. If you really want to know the history of film, just watch Spielberg, because he's kind of giving you the whole up until him. But definitely you should go back and watch some Kurosawa and some Capra and some Hitchcock and
Yeah. I can't think offhand who, like, but I'm always like, oh, that's Frank Capra. Like, oh, no wonder I like that so much. Like, if I join a movie and I don't know what's happening, and then I'm like, oh. So can you remind us then what he made?
So his most famous is It's a Wonderful Life. And when you watch that, Spielberg's famous for like a guy starting kind of back here and walking up into camera. And that's like a hallmark of Capra's. Like, we're seeing a scene, here's all the people, and then one person's going to break away and we're going to get there because they're the most important. We're going to get their sort of like emotional state right up front. And up until that point, not that he was the first to do it, but he did it a lot and it was kind of his trademark. It was stage plays with just a camera lockdown and people would just move around within the frame until people like Capra or Kurosawa was like, well, what if we move the camera here? What if we brought this person close in and really change sort of the visual language of things.
And speaking of stage plays, you and your wife met, and you have a film company, which is White Shark Media, and we'll talk about that in a moment. But when you met, you were both doing stage acting, right?
She's an actress, yeah. And we met in class, which is so cheesy, but kind of awesome too. So it was a scene study class. So there's a lot of people would put up a scene. We'd probably do 5 or 6 scenes per class. And then the instructor would critique them, or he might stop a scene. And so we ended up we got paired for something. I was asked to direct a scene she was in. And I just thought her work ethic was awesome. I had sworn off I was never going to date an actress. So it was like a year of like working together and realizing we had this creative spark that we sort of figured out, oh, we should probably be together. She had an idea for a movie called The Tuna Goddess, because she was from Cape Cod, and it was about a woman who inherits her dad's tuna boat. She'd never written anything as a screenplay, so she's like, will you help me? And I was like, oh yeah, let's hang out for the next year. And write the screenplay. I'm no dummy, which eventually became a stage play that we did at Cape Rep. And then in turn got interest and we got the screenplay option. And it was supposed to be, we had the budget, we had the cast, everything was ready to go. And then COVID ended that. So we pivoted and we made the movie Red River Road, which is out now.
Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
We were like, well, we're locked in this house. I act, you act. The kids have both, they went through the Yoko at Cape Rep, so they're seasoned vets on the stage. And we're like, could we just make a movie here, like while we're stuck here? So yeah, we just did that. And I think mostly it was just in response to, are we just going to sit around, watch TV and make bread? And are we going to do like something crazy and keep our minds occupied?
Did you feel like you were taking all people's like fear and anxiety and like catastrophizing, like almost like filtering it and then like putting it out? Like, I don't know.
One of those rare movies where sometimes the story just comes, like it comes fully formed. And this was one of those, like I just had the thought, could we make a movie in the house? And then that night I woke up in the middle of a dream and kind of like, oh, I have the whole thing. And somewhere I have 5 like pages of handwritten, like wrote out the whole thing. And then it was probably 4 days to just put the screenplay together. So they had something, but it was almost like a fever dream. Like it's just here and I'm not going to question it much. And it was after the fact that I started to realize like what I was thinking about or what my sort of all underneath tension was I was trying to get out. And it was fun having it on the festival circuit and getting audience reactions because it became almost this stand-in for people. Like people projected onto it whatever sort of they were going through because everyone had a different take.
So your class is going to be a crash course in filmmaking and you're about creating a story.
So the idea, and we'll see how it goes, is just talk about story structure at the beginning. There's some schools of thought about how to write a story. Basically, understand the rules before you break them and know why you're breaking them or if you should break them because those rules are there. They're also a thing you can lean back on and go like, this is the support system. Now I can fly a little bit or I can get a little creative. So we'll talk about that. I'll probably have a watch list to, if not to begin with, to definitely walk away with, like things that I think are really great examples of just structurally telling a story, but also like an instance of something like Memento, Chris Nolan's film, where it's told sequentially backwards. So you start at the end and work your way to the beginning. Like that's a purposeful thing that actually adds to the whole mystery of the story. And then we're going to just create a story from scratch. We're just going to start with a whiteboard and see what we all come up with. And I think in that process, it'll uncover the traps that you can fall into or where laziness might set in. Like, oh, I need to get from here to here. So we'll just do this. And yeah, I'm excited to see what we come up with.
That's awesome. That's going to be so much fun. Well, thank you so much, Paul Schuyler, for joining us today. I really appreciate it.
Thank you I'm so excited to do this. I feel like there's a new crop of filmmakers coming. Things have gotten a little stale and I feel like something's coming. And if I can, whatever little bit of wisdom I have, I can impart, I'm happy to do it.
Folks can register for the Youth Filmmaking Workshop Series August 5th through the 8th at wellfleetpreservationhall.org. The Youth Filmmaking Workshop program was originally created by Vanessa Downing to encourage participation in the Wellfleet Youth Film Festival. This year, the 7th annual festival happens August 29th. Submissions are due by August 22nd, and Pres Hall is accepting student films from youth ages 7 to 23. It's going to be a fantastic festival, August 29th, and there will be prizes. The films will be judged by several of the filmmaking workshop teachers. Youth filmmakers can submit their short or narrative pieces in any genre. More details are at wellfleetpreservationhall.org.